Good afternoon and welcome to the Arbor stage. And here we are for a fantastic series, a philosophy series on art, creativity and identity. Now, most of you probably already know all about the legends of Midnight Oil. Hands up everyone who's all across Midnight Oil, listen to it lots. Hands up, is anyone not quite familiar with Midnight Oil? Okay, iconic Australian legendary band, and I'm old enough to remember them coming and performing at University of Queensland, and Peter Garrett with his big bald head sweating, beads of sweat flying off into the audience, and his big hands. He was like a big rising sun, just sending out his message. One of the most political left-wing bands, and Jim Magini was a big part of that because he was the lead songwriter and also singer, musician, keyboardist. So Midnight Oil were inducted into the ARIA Hall of Fame. They won an award for outstanding service to Australian music. But Jim has been busy doing lots of other things since then. He's produced other bands and recorded with very famous artists. And now he's just written a book, which I think he'll talk about, called The Silver River, which is very evocative for me. It has really interesting meaning in Japanese. And Sean Sennett will lead the discussion. He himself is an accomplished musician, a songwriter, and he became, many of you will know of Time Off magazine, he became the co-owner through an incredible series of serendipity of Time Off magazine, which became the highest circulating street press in Queensland. He's collected over 1,000 interviews with musicians, including people you'll definitely have heard of, David Bowie, Iggy Pop and Bruce Springsteen. So he's an expert interviewer of musicians, and he's also a radio broadcaster, podcast host and author, currently living in Meganjin, Brisbane. So can you give Jim and Sean a very warm Woodford welcome?
Thank you, Jenny. Just get organised here.
I think I'm going to go handheld, actually. Are you recording this? Wow.
I'm bootlegging you, Jim. Hi, everyone.
Not the first time.
I'm Sean Sennett. This is the great Jim and Jenny. Let's hear it for Jim. I was so excited to get the call from Jim asking if I'd come and have a chat to him about creativity and the philosophy behind that. And before we kick off, I think Jim's got a few words about what we're talking about.
Well, I just wanted to say this before we started because I didn't want this to be about, my glorious past and my glorious career and all that. I wanted it to be more about what you guys are probably experiencing. So I'm just going to say this. I am a creative. Repeat after me. I am a creative. Very good. It's not a career. It's not a career. It's more a way of being. It's more a way of being. Like a child at play. I couldn't tell, you don't have to repeat this. I couldn't tell anyone how to write a song. Well, there are a few tricks, but how do you teach an artist to be an artist? I think it's about noticing small things, especially words that people use or don't use, showing but not telling, guiding and not over-explaining, noticing chords that lead you to the next chord. As Rumi says, as you start to walk on the way appears, you follow the line. The process of painting is very similar to this. So we're talking metaphysics here, not chart positions. Right, that's all I want to say.
Thank you, Jim. So it's interesting, there was that great line from Picasso, wasn't there, that he spent like 90 years trying to paint like a 3-year-old again. I want to ask you, when was the big bang for you? When did you first get turned on by music as one of the things that's inspired you?
The first time probably was the Beatles, and seeing them on television and being completely transfixed by the joy of what they were doing and the how they were doing it. I mean, I think, you know, I was watching it going, how are they doing this? I didn't know that when they played on the radio that it wasn't them actually in the radio station playing. I had no idea that it was a recording. I didn't know what that was. So it was probably about 64, and they were kind of just before they got really famous here. A few weeks before, I just beat everyone else by a few weeks, and and then from then it was probably people like MacArthur Park, singles like that, and guitar players came later. It was probably more about songs in the beginning.
So you're listening to the radio as a kid and these songs are lighting you up. When did you first have an inclination that you wanted to write something yourself or create something out of nothing?
Well, that's what it is really. It's sort of creating something out of nothing. I think the process is deeply mysterious. And I don't really want to talk about it, but that's what I'm here to talk about. So how am I going to do this? It was more, I think, when the band formed and we needed things to play. And we were playing a lot of covers and we were doing, I think we did, Jojo Gunn songs. We did Jumping Jack Flash. We did a few Stones things. We did Stepping Stone by the Monkees. And then we realised we really needed to get some more stuff. So then Rob, who the drummer in the band, is a really great lyricist. He and I just hit it off straight away, and I'd make a lot of recordings at home on a little 4-track that I had, and I loved just making recordings. They weren't really songs, they were more pieces of music, really. And he would go, "Oh, that's a good bit. Can we use that?" I said, "Sure, we can use that." And then I started really writing a little bit later because he had a handle on what Pete could do. Pete could sing right from the very start.
Right.
It took me a long time to figure that out.
So it sounds like the early days of songwriting for you were collating bits of ideas, then collaborating and putting them together. Is that the case? And then, given that, when did you then go the whole hog yourself and write the whole song yourself? Well,
that sort of came with the piano because I'm not a very good piano player, but I love sitting at a piano. As anyone knows, if they sit at a piano, it's sort of an act of transcendence. You just put your hands anywhere on the thing and off you go. You don't know where it's going to lead you. You kind of, I just really enjoy that sort of transcendence that you could experience at a piano and the sonority of it and the way it could just be really powerful or really quiet and beautiful. And that's really what got me into it. I think I got a piano when I was about 17. My brother's here somewhere, he probably remembers that. And then from there, I did start to write things on my own, but the lyrics were pretty trite, and the poetry was pretty lame. But I realised, I was also reading a lot of Australian bush poets like Henry Lawson and people like that, so I was getting a bit of an Australian perspective. But once I heard Skyhawks and Chisel and those bands, and that they were writing about Australian subject matter, then, oh, okay, I can do this as well. So
yeah, right.
So it was sort of, all of that. But the piano was the key, and that sort of lack of guile that can happen when you're writing songs. I think it's important that you're not trying to write a hit or something, because that's immediately going to claim you up and you're going to become kind of scared of your own sort of grandiosity. I think you have to, have a real lack of guile and also a willingness to sort of get a result that's not predictable. I think that's part of it as well, that wherever it leads you will take you to where you need to go.
You mentioned there's like a transcendence when you're writing on a piano, but obviously radio and albums back in the day, CDs, and then of course streaming now doesn't really matter. You could write something that goes on for days if you want to, but how hard was it for you to then structure your ideas and sort of bring them down to 3 or 4 minutes?
Well, yeah, that was a funny one, because in the beginning of the band's history, that we didn't do that. The only song they did play was 3 minutes, just almost by accident. And so we weren't thinking along the radio lines. We had a lot of people coming along and saying that. But, you've got to be careful with what you say to musicians. It's like if you say things like, be responsible or something, you just immediately clam up and fear overtakes you. Or also things like, Triple J won't play that.
Yeah.
Is another one that'll get you kind of shrinking in the face of the harsh light of the business. But I was lucky because I was in a band that didn't really pay any attention to any of that stuff until later when we did.
So with Midnight Oil, obviously the band's very well known. You're selling records all around the world. I'm curious about your writing process then, and then we'll talk about your process now. Because it was kind of what you did, you were part of the engine room that wrote songs for the band. Were you continually on? Were you keeping notebooks all the time?
Yeah.
Or would you wait for that light bulb to come on and then start work?
Yeah, it's I actually think it's more about I'd use I'd have books, and I've got a sports bag full of books at home that's just pads or books or anything, and you just write things down in the book and you don't sort of really judge them. So I'd just be always knowing that there was a need for material or whatever you call it. I'd be very aware that, I better be on all the time. So I'd be writing things, but I wouldn't be judging them at all. I'd just write a whole lot of things down, musical passages or a phrase maybe, and then come back later and look at it with a bit of a microscope. Actually, probably what I meant to do was this, So I think the lack of judgment as well is really important when you want to generate a lot of music. I think you're going to have a lot of crap, but that's necessary to get to the good stuff.
And did you sort of have a contract with the other guys in the band that wrote? Because obviously yourself and Rob Hurst were the primary writers. Peter Garrett was a writer as well. Did you sort of have to turn up to a session and know that this song that I've written will be pulled apart and maybe contributed to? Or did you take things in that weren't fully formed so that the other guys could contribute?
Yeah, I think, probably the latter, but both, I think, really. I think it's like if you are collaborating with people, you've got to make sure they're good people, They're not out to sort of try and own everything, or they're not trying to steal off you, But we had a good team of people that had brought different skills to the table, I think. And of course, that developed over time. Bands are hard things to keep together, I think, in a way. We were lucky, I think, because this is about something else, but if you split the songwriting royalties right down the middle, you're going to be able to keep your band together.
Right.
And you're going to be able to do a lot of work for how many years were we doing it for, 25 and then another 5. And then, so I think a lot of bands don't even get past their first album because of this stuff.
Yes.
It's really important to get it right, that no royalty, no loyalty, But I think it's also, you have to surrender a certain part of your own sovereignty to collaborate. You can't, that's the whole point of it, really.
Yes.
But it's nothing better than to hear something coming back to you that you originated that's a lot better than what the thing that you originated was. And that happened a lot in our band.
Can you give us an example of a song where you wrote the skeleton of it and then there was contributions from the other guys and it became something pretty special?
Yeah, there's a few. The one I just thought of was a song called Hercules, which was on Species Diseases, and Martin and I went up. I had this rough idea for a song, and Martin and I came up to my little basement at my mum's place, and we did a 4-track recording of it. And then I brought it to the band, and the band kind of liked it, but the lyrics were terrible. They were kind of placeholder, beyond placeholder. They were the worst things I'd ever heard. And then Pete had a go at singing it. Good on him for trying. And then Rob came in at about 10 minutes before we were about to get on a plane, literally, and go somewhere, and said, I know what this song's about. It's about the Rainbow Warrior. Which had just happened, which was 85. And then, so it became Who Waits for the Planes to Come and Everybody's Got You on the Run, South Pacific, Carry On. Here come the Hercules, here come the submarines sinking, South Pacific Dreams. Bang. Suddenly it was not only just a good song, but a Midnight Oil song. And then that's when you just know it's done. You don't have to keep trying then. So it was a good collaboration with a good team of people.
It must have been exciting for you too, because obviously, as you said, you're in your mum's basement or you're at home with a 4-track, but in the back of your mind, you know that, and I've been lucky enough to be in a rehearsal room with you guys, that when 5 of you get in a circle and play, it's something else, isn't it? So tell me about the impact of performance on writing a song.
Yeah, well, sometimes you just know it's going to work. It's something about there was a riff on our last album, the Resist album, a song called Nobody's Child, and I had the riff, and I just thought there's no way, the band wasn't even together then, that there's no way that this can ever be recorded by anyone else but Midnight Oil. This has got it written all over it, and I've got to save it for the day, you know. And the day came, luckily, when the band got back together again and we were able to do it. So there's sort of a power there that's quite hard to explain. I don't even really want to explain it to myself, but I know you can feel it when it's there, and you can feel it when it's not there.
Given we're in Queensland, I think about a song like Redneck Wonderland, and I understand that riff, which is something that was around for years, but didn't have a home. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was around something written in the rehearsal room. They were actually backstage at the gig at the pier in Frankston, if anyone remembers the pier in Frankston. Do you remember it? Were you there? Really? Oh, good on you. Wow. So, yeah, you've just got to remember things and have them have a storage medium that you can access them. So when you need to drop one in, you've got one. You know, it felt like that for me. The creativity of it was more about kind of knowing where to find the things that you needed at that moment.
Yeah, that sort of little manifesto that you read out at the beginning there, you mentioned that it's not a career. So tell me about creativity being a vocation and not a career.
I think it's about that. It's not about you. I think it's creativity is about it goes through you. It isn't a thing that is you. I think you have to kind of have a slightly more humble. Well, in my opinion, to let the things come through you and not judge them. Just let them come through and sort of somehow document the idea in a simple way, and then you can then drop it in. I mean, it's being what you're just saying is sort of a big subject, and that's what we're here to talk about. But there's ways of being an artist. Like, for example, don't play your stuff to people early. Just wait. You know, you don't need the validation straight away, because someone can kill it by just saying, "Oh, that's not very good," or they can make it fat by saying, "Oh, that's great," and you know it's not finished.
Yeah.
So it's better not to even. There are some things you have to keep to yourself that are precious, and you know, wait. If you have to get the validation, sure, but wait. You don't need it straight away. There's nothing worse than someone going, "I've written 60 amazing songs." You listen to them and go, "Well, you know, it's not that great." So, and it's a way of sort of respecting the magic about it. Really, I think it's there's a certain amount of magic. But then again, you can just get a phrase and write a song around that too. So it's not a totally hard and fast thing. I think it's just being open. Is what your question? That's the answer to your question. You have to be very open.
I interviewed David Bowie once, and he told me that it was very important for him not to finesse things before he got to the studio, to leave room that when he got there might have been lyrics that needed finishing, or it wasn't completely finished and the edges have been taken off it. Do you find that? Do you like to keep things a little bit raw before you actually... Yeah,
there's nothing worse than having to sort of repeat the demo or try and beat the demo. The demo is just the demo. It's not. You know, some people think it's got to be the same as a demo. Well, who cares really? It's got to work as a band. You know, everyone has to add their bit to it.
I'd imagine as Midnight Oil got bigger, that there was a situation where you would record pretty much an album, then record it again, in terms of the demos be so good, right?
Yeah, it was like that at a certain point. I think we became. You know, there was a point where the band became very successful, and then there was the record company starts to get closer to you slowly but surely, not overnight, but over a period of years, and they can encircle you and create this thing. You got to, that was a good single. Can you give us another one of those? So you're trying to sort of rebottle, you know, put the genie back in the bottle and repackage it and put it out again. I think it's a mistake, and I think we probably got caught in that at a certain point where there's sort of a fear that comes from that, which is the wrong thing to have. It's not about fear, it's about lack of fear. And the things that really hit you when you hear them on the radio, things that move you aren't things that are sort of a carbon copy of something else or something that you've already done. Record labels don't sometimes always understand that. I think it has to come from a place that's true and real. You know, there's a song that I love that comes from that place. I might attempt to play it if you don't mind. Oh, okay. It's about written by Doc Pomus and Mort Schumann. It's an old song from the 50s. I think the Drifters did it. Is that right? The Drifters? Yeah. Save the Last Dance for Me.
John Lennon did it too, and
John Lennon
Lewis.
did it. Yeah. Well, it was written. Doc Pomus wrote the lyrics, and he was in a wheelchair. He had polio, and he was young. And when he got married to his wife, who was a really expert dancer, at the wedding, she was dancing with all these other guys, and he was writing this on a napkin, watching her, and basically it's a love song to her, so it's coming from a real place, and there's a difference. You can dance every dance with the guy who gives you the eye, let him hold you tight. You can smile every smile for the man who held your hand beneath the pale moonlight. But don't forget he's taking you home, and in your arms you're gonna be. Oh, darling, save the last dance for me. Oh, I know that the music's fine, like sparkling wine. Go and have your fun, laugh and sing, but while we're apart, don't give your heart to anyone. So don't forget it's taking you home, in your arms you're gonna be. Oh, darling, save the last dance for me. So, you know, there's a difference between things that are kind of confected and things that are real. I mean, that's a real feeling. And he loves her so much and needs her so much. He wants to know, but, you know, he's jealous. He's a jealous guy, as Leonard would say. Yeah. And that kind of emotion isn't something that you know, it's not a cod idea. It's not like an idea that's a placeholder idea. It's a real thing. So I think anyone you talk to who writes songs, I think Rob said this recently to me. He said, you know, the Don Walkers of the world and the Paul Kellys of the world don't write from anything but a real feeling and a real experience. It's something that they felt in their soul, not a, oh God, I'm going to write a song about, you know, the internet or something. Perish the thought.
I'm curious about, you mentioned reading. How often do you learn old songs? I know that Paul Kelly has a habit of, if he's not going to write that day, he'll try and learn a song that day, then pull it apart, put it back together again. Is that something you do?
Doesn't surprise me. Yeah. Yeah, I do it a lot. I mean, I'm still trying to learn how to play MacArthur Park on the piano. I've been doing that since I was about 20. Better hurry up. Yeah, I'm trying to learn Claire de Lune on the piano at the moment as well, which is just beautiful, the Debussy piece. And I try and play the Bach lute suites from sheet music. I've been doing that ever since I was a kid as well. So I've got a different musical brain, I think, to a lot of people, but because there's so much good music. But yeah, a song is, how a song can move you and hit you is really interesting to me. Like how, I'm obsessed with how things work, song work. Is it the lyric? Is it the sound? Something about deeply mysterious about the sound? Like, you know, maybe a Lana Del Rey record, you go, it's just so ethereal. Or you listen to a, you know, anything, the Phil Spector production, or you kind of go, what, you know, there's something magical going on here with that vocal, or it's the lyric, or it's a wonderful thing to explore, yeah. So I think as a songwriter you have to notice that, and you have to notice what moves you. And you also have to be a bit of a cannibal, you know. And I mean, if you hear an overheard conversation, I was at an airport once and someone just said to someone else, "Listen, my advice to you is ... You know, thought that's a good idea for a song. You know, write it down. And so I've got a song now on this new record, our new band's record called My Advice to You, which is just about that. So, I mean, how many times have you heard that people say that to you? Well, my advice to you is, mate, you know, get a life, or, you know, whatever it is, you know. You should be more of a bastard or less of a bastard.
You mentioned something about the way a record sounds, that's where the magic is. I'm curious about this sort of dark art of mixing. So you write the song, you're together with your bandmates, you record the song. There's all these tracks on a computer now, in the old days on tape. Then the mix happens. Have you seen things clutched from the jaws of victory in a mix and likewise saved?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, the song The Dead Heart actually was a case in point. That was, we produced it ourselves, and we were in the studio. We had two 24-track machines locked up together. And me and the engineer were trying to do it. We just couldn't get it to sound right, and I knew it. And then Nick Launay, who our friend at the great record mixer producer guy, was in town. Nick, come in and help. And in one day, he completely changed it into something coherent, good to listen to, driving, energetic. You know, it had a lot of energy. The lyric was well represented. The melodies, the instrumentation was right. You know, there was French horns, and we had cellos and glockenspiels, God name it, everything on it. But that kind of was a magic day when that happened. It really was. I was there for the whole time, and it was just like an act of sorcery, really. I couldn't quite believe what happened to that song.
What was he doing? Was he pulling things off the track? Was he adding things to it?
He seemed to just keep adding to it, which is not my normal game. I'd be taking things away. But because everything had so much weight in the bottom end, then you could support all of those ideas on the top by having the details could be represented well. And by having if you get the bottom end right, then you can put anything on it, really. But he had a tom-tom fills and delays, reverbs. Pete improvised the vocal at the last minute, at the end, which took it off to another level. And
now, the Dead Heart's a song I've always been interested in, because I think that's a great example of a band and principal writers working together. Because from my understanding it was Rob's skeleton of a song,
yeah,
and then you added a very, very crucial bit as well as a key change. Can you tell us about that?
Well, that was Rob came in. Well, it's the same with Beds of Burning, actually, which almost done in the same day. Rob came in with that beautiful lyrics, "We carry in our hearts a true country, and that cannot be stolen. We follow in the steps of our ancestry, and that cannot be broken." And it was so good, but it was very slow, you know. Then I just went, can we speed it up a bit, you know? So, you know. That was just an idea I had in one of my books. I said, can we put that in it? And we went, yeah, that's good. What if we go do on it? Yeah, why don't we do that? Do. And then that went in between his lines. It's to punctuate the lines. And then there was a major key bit, which... that I brought in as well. And then Rob had the French horn lines and the cello lines, and then Martin added this sort of big note, which was like every 16 bars or so, which was... and that was the song. And you wouldn't know. The demo took about an hour and a half to make, but the Beds one was like the same. The Beds one was a little bit more complicated because Rob again came in with the chorus, you know. You know, that's what the Beds are, but... And then we were, oh, that's so good. That is such a good chorus. Wow, you know, and then Pete said to me, he was leaving, he had to go to some political thing he was doing. And he said, do you remember that riff that you had in London in 1982? And I went, yeah, I know the one. You mean the one when Whitesnake was driving their Ferraris up and down outside the rehearsal room? Yes, he said, yeah, that one. And that was and I thought, yeah, that goes really well with the chorus. And then Pete said, well, look, as my parting gift, I'll give you these lyrics. And he walked out the door, and on the bit of paper was, the time has come to say fair's fair, to pay our rent, to pay our share. The time has come, fact is fact. It belongs to them, let's give it back.
That was Pete's.
And that was so then we all became a puzzle, and I was just sitting at the mixing desk going, wow, okay. And we had a drum machine, which was sort of boom, boom, which was sort of kind of what we were into at that moment. And then I switched that on, and someone said, oh, if you want a hit record, it's got to be 120 beats per minute.
Wow.
And I think Billie Jean's that speed. I think some other things that speed. That's the tempo that people resonate. When you go shopping, if you're playing 120 beats per minute, you're actually in sync with the shop. It's a primal heartbeat, a multiple of 60 beats per minute, which is the heartbeat of human beings. So it sounds a bit cynical. I thought, well, that's a joke. Come on, let's try that. So I couldn't change the speed of the drum machine. That's what it was. It automatically came on at 120 beats per minute. So I boom, and then put the riff on. And I thought, well, actually, Pete's thing would go well at the end of this verse, which didn't really exist really at that point, and over the riff.
Amazing.
Time has come. And with a descending chord, that's a fact, belongs to them. And then give it back. I don't know where that came from. Anyway. And then, well, that sets up the chorus really well. But how do we get out of the chorus to get back to the verse? So, we'll use the time has come again to say again at the end of the chorus. So that'd be a little tag at the end of the chorus which would bring you back. So this is just arrangement, really. I don't know whether this is songwriting, but the song was already kind of there, really. And then I just had this bright idea to just go, let's get your attention. And really, in about an hour, the whole thing was done.
That's amazing.
And the recording was done. And that was the demo that we sent our producer, and he said, that's a hit. And we were like, really? Okay.
It was all in there.
And everyone who heard it said, it's a hit. It was like, oh, jeez, don't jinx it for us, will you?
When did you know it was a hit? When did you feel that it was a hit?
I didn't know. I never knew until Rob asked me when we were mixing it. He wasn't at the last day of the mix. I think we were doing a gig at Blacktown RSL, of all places. And he said, how's the mix of Beds of Burning going? I said, it's really anthemic. And I would never have used that word about our music before, because it was all sort of pub rock thrash, really.
Yes.
A lot of it, all kind of weird atmospheric things. And then it was the first thing that kind of... And everybody who heard it said, that's the one,
Unbelievable.
And I didn't really know. But that's the lack of guile. It's probably like a lack of knowledge, really.
I remember going to see U2 and they played it in the stadium before they came on, Beds of Burning. And to have a song taken over by the audience, it must be a powerful thing when it's your song, but it's kind of our song too, isn't it now?
Yeah, that's what I mean about it's not about you. It's about, I think these songs belong to everybody, really, and they've always been there, but it's just a matter of someone has to come along and sort of, with a scalpel, kind of uncover it, like an archaeological dig or something. It's like a... when we played it at the Olympics, actually, there was about 100,000 people in the stadium, about 1 billion people watching or something. Talk about low-pressure gig, And we played it, and then I realised at that moment that this was the greatest point that the band ever had, which was this sort of musical moment because it was a song, but it was also very political about the Aboriginal sort of plight, about land rights and everything that people have been fighting for years, and we've been part of. And also, but very cultural because there was Kylie Minogue and there was Elle Macpherson there, and on a float, it was Slim Dusty, Tommy Emmanuel, like Yothu India were there, Men at Work were there, INXS were there.
Hoax.
Was Hoax there?
Hoax was there, yeah.
Pre-facelift or?
No, I think he'd had it. Yeah. But I remember you guys had sorry written on your boiler suits.
Yeah.
And Rob Hurst told me his mum thought it said Sony.
I wouldn't even show my mum because I thought she might tell the media we were going to protest.
Ah.
And there's no way she would have even known what it was.
I think we should all do the do-do-dos together. I feel a moment. Can we do that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Now, the other end of that, you currently, I know you're not selling your CDs here today, you've made a new album called Funk with your band The Family Dog. And you mentioned to me the other day that it took you 2 days to record the music and then 4 years to make the record.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Well, it's another process. It's I mean, you can come up with a song and this is the bridge and this is the chorus, and maybe a bridge sounds like the chorus sounds like what the song's about or the main message, and then the bridge is the thing on the way to that, or the thing that feels a bit unresolved and it needs the chorus to sort of make it pop. And the verse is just sort of something that chugs along with a meditation of the lyrics, and then the bridge is sort of like maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe the bridge is sort of like, maybe it's another idea. So that's one way of writing songs in a very kind of normal way. But this was sort of get a band in a room, record them all, don't have any separation, spill into the drums, everything, because, the isolation in recording happened in the 70s, and a lot of records sounded like shit in the 70s because they're so dead. Whereas when everyone's in a room together and it's all glued together with a certain sort of magic and performance, and even if there's wrong notes, it's fine. It's got a life and an electricity to it. And then, so we got that. 2 days of recording, didn't even listen to it for a while. Thought a lot of it was a load of crap, but then came back and went, oh, geez, that's a good bit. Why don't we put a song over that? Or actually, this other part could go with that really well. Let's use editing to create the song, and then, or a sort of a what you call what's it called in art when you do a little sculpture? It's a maquette, and thank you. And you then put the song over the top. So then you write lyrics to go with that might reflect the actual sort of feeling of what you're trying to make. So that was what we did, and it took 4 years to actually make the record from that. Not every day. I mean, we weren't there all the time. That would be like we'd be turning into Yes if we did something like that.
It sounds like you sort of have two schools of thought, that it's good to strike while the iron's hot and finish something, and then it's also good to leave something for a while and go back and re-examine it.
Yeah, I mean, John Lennon said you should finish it if you get the idea. Well, it's easy to say. It's probably, I actually don't think he even could do it. But those ones tend to be the good ones if you can get it all in one hot moment. But
right.
Like the Beds thing or whatever. But I think there isn't any system. I mean, I just think you've got to be open, and I'm lucky I've got a studio so I can make these things and go and have these crazy ideas and somehow turn them into something concrete.
You mentioned there's a violence to writing as well. Tell me about that.
Oh, that's really important. Yeah, the violence. When something just isn't working, just go, just either erase it or just forget it, or just pinch a bit of it for something else, or take the melody and use it as a bass line, or somehow recycle the whole thing so it's, it's recontextualised. So, people can be very nice about songs. And they go, oh, this is very nice, but really, it's just boring. You just have to sort of be prepared to get bored with it and be happy to destroy it. And there's that great story of Brian Eno erasing the streets that have no name. The U2 song. He was on his way to the tape machine to actually erase the tape, and the tape op rugby tackled him and actually dragged him to the ground and stopped it. But it's just because the band had this weird vision of the song that they needed someone from the outside to come in with some clarity, which was Steve Lillywhite, who came and saved it. But that kind of destructive thing, you have to be prepared to destroy something, or let go of something that you thought it was going to be, and it turns into something else.
Elvis Costello had that line about albums are never finished, they're abandoned. which I think is probably true to a large degree. But when you were signed to Sony for years, and obviously there's a deadline, and you've got to put records out, and now you're an independent artist, and you don't have to put them out if you don't want to. You do it at when you feel like it. How important is it for the artist to release the record, put it out on streaming, burn a CD, whatever it is, so they can then draw a line under it, then move to the next one?
I think it's the main thing, really. If you can, I know people have been working on albums for 20 years, and it's the same album, and how can they move on? You know, what if they're wrong? What if it's no good? You know, wasn't there a Guns N' Roses album like that? Or something?
Yeah, Chinese Democracy, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think you've got to work through things like jazz musicians do. You play and you create it, and then I think there's a point where you know it's kind of done, and then then there's another point where there's sort of a grand peak, which I learnt that from Daniel Lamar one night in the studio. He was talking to me about it, and then get to this grand peak, and then anything after that you put on the record is a sin.
Right.
It gets into ornamentation, which is a sin. It's like putting filigree on something, or going down to Bunnings and getting some fake wrought iron and putting it on your house like in the castle. You know, that kind of...
Yeah.
You don't... You know, it's just not going to help. It's not going to make it any better. People aren't going to respond to it more. It's just done. And artists, that is a very hard thing for artists now, especially with mixing. Because mixing, you can go down the rabbit hole and go on YouTube and listen to all these influencers telling you, you know, you have to buy this plug-in. And it's just all crap, you know. I mean, how many times have you sat through some YouTube video with two guitar players sitting there with the same guitar and the same pedal going, yeah, it's better. Yeah, this one's definitely better. You go, I can't tell the difference. I'm just really trying hard. You got to trust yourself. It's all about what you know and it's all about being you, really. And I think if your vision of it is your vision of it, then maybe audiences have to respect that. Maybe you won't take all the audience with you, but then you're being true to some sort of path, which is what it is, really. I think you've made lots of records yourself, Sean.
Yeah.
I mean, when do you know whether it's done or not? When you run out of money or time? Or
Yeah, well, mine are usually done on a kind of budget. And sometimes I don't think they're done. And I think I'd be a better mix, or we need a better art cover, or we need something else or an extra track. And so I sort of play games now where I do things like for my last record, I took all the rock songs off it. And there was like a record there. Before I didn't know which way I was going. So you've got to put up parameters, I think. That gives you a way of finishing. I think setting a deadline is really important. And I think also, too, realising this is the best I can do.
And that's okay. That's enough.
Yeah, and then enough time transpires. It's like seeing an old photograph of yourself and you go, I look pretty good in that photo. Whereas at the time you think, nah.
Yeah. Certainly doesn't happen anymore, does it? Yeah. Look in the mirror and getting that feeling.
But I do think the doing is the most important thing, which comes back to our opening gambit of this conversation. If you want to do it, you've got to do it. If not now, when, right? Yeah,
because time is a precious commodity. I mean, I've just put out a rock band record called Funk, and then last year I did a book that I put out in the year before. I did a atmospheric guitar record, which was solo guitar, which I'd never done before, and I didn't even know I was making the record when I made the record. And that's the best record because it's really quick. But there's something about the unguarded nature of the playing, and again, what I was saying about the band in the room. You're not making a song. You're not making it for the radio. You're just making a sound that somehow works in that moment, and it's unguarded, and there's no malice or a forethought or kind of any kind of manipulative kind of, oh yeah, and I think this is Triple J going to like this sort of thing. It's more, you know, what jazz musicians do. I think they just play, and then somehow that's enough. And I realised it was just 2 years after I did it. In one afternoon, I just came back and went, actually, that's really good. I don't know why. Maybe I needed to put it out at that point because the band had just split up and I wanted to do something that was very, different, but also very calming and very centred.
Well, my 12-year-old daughter's a Swiftie, and we played your atmospheric record in the car, and we got to the end and she went, Dad, I've never heard a record like that before. Which is great.
Well, yeah, I'll take it as a compliment.
Totally, absolutely. So we've got some time for questions. Would anybody like to ask Jim a question? The gentleman down here.
I think it's. I just never know what it's going to be or where it's going to come from, and that's actually the joy of it, because it feels the same in a way, because something's happening and it's like, in a way, writing a song's like solving a puzzle. You just have all these pieces and slight fragments of things, and somehow they start to, like ice flows, gravitating to each other and then forming a solid platform in the Arctic Sea or something, like that kind of idea of things that are just in circulation and aren't being driven together. They're sort of you're driving it together somehow, but just by just being at the piano. And then your presence there is enough. Your presence at the canvas is enough that something might happen or might not happen. But it's not anything that I could really totally explain. I really don't know how it happens. Sorry.
The ego is quite prevalent in some performers, and I guess you said that beautifully, that it's actually not for you, when you create something.
No.
So that's just an interesting comment, or if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's more about I don't know. I find it very. I said earlier, it's a very hard thing to talk about. I just think if you can get that feeling inside you that it's something in your soul more than in the intellect, it's something more about the feeling of the chords and the music together and the sort of thing that creates, and then if that can then guide a lyric or even the other way around. And odd time changes are good, especially when you write a song, like noticing that maybe the first time you play it's different to the second time you play it. If you're in record in some way, and there might be a little pause you did the first time. It's almost the best you ever played it the first time you played it. It's at its most purest. The thing that's being divined in this moment. I'll sound very new age, don't I? But yeah, and then it comes down, and then you noticing those little things is really important. And I've learned to notice that more over the years. Those little pauses and the little extra beats that kind of might happen are really important to kind of make the song what it is. And because sometimes you can make it very linear and chop it up into little blocks, and then it becomes like Lego, It's more like a river flowing. I think that's the sort of feeling you want to have when you're writing. Oh. Yeah. Front row.
Thanks for a fabulous talk, both of you. Two questions. The first one is, why do you think we're all rednecks in Queensland?
No, it was their song. I live in Queensland, so we're not all rednecks.
Yeah, I know. But the second question for you, Jim, was I believe you do some soundtrack work for cinema?
I just finished a soundtrack.
Yeah. And it seems to me that that's quite a different process, and that you might have to be given a brief or develop a brief. Could you talk a little bit about that process?
Well, again, you're in the service of something, which is the drama of the film. So doing a soundtrack's more about supporting that. And the best soundtracks are where you don't even notice there's music at all, because it somehow fits the narrative. And this one I just did use a lot of horns, like trombones, euphoniums, French horns. That would seem to be the sort of sound of what it was. And so that was a good brief to get as well. So it's a different kind of thing, actually. Yeah, you're not as much the master of ceremonies. You're more there to sort of serve the cause, really. Yeah, but that's a good gig too, because it's like working with other people and collaborating. Again, a collaboration you're not always going to get your own way, but that's fine. That's good. Maybe you're wrong. That doubt is what keeps you going. And in fact, you never really know that you're going to be, the definitive guy, it's good to have other people involved in it, I think, you know. I mean, one day I might turn into Hans Zimmer, but not yet. Yeah.
Hello. I first want to say that The Dead Heart lands at Woodford differently to anywhere else I've ever heard it. The place sings, we all just get so into it, and thank you for that. My question is that I've been a punter for a long time. I love music. I can play a mean tambourine and I can sing in the shower, but I can't play an instrument. How do you know when you're on stage that that gig is going off and that everybody in the crowd is having an amazing time?
It's different being on the stage than being in the crowd. I mean, sometimes you're caught up in the details of what you're doing, because by the end of the band I was playing keyboards and guitar and playing about 10 different things at the same time, like an octopus, so trying to sort of replicate the more layered sound of the records. And eventually we got some other musicians. Actually, Adam Ventura's here today. Where is Adam? He was playing with us, yeah. Give him a hand, Adam. After we lost Bonesy. Just was the right man at the right time, I tell you. But yeah, you just kind of know. I think something becomes a bit unglued, and you're not. It's very free, and you're not. It's sort of like a horse galloping, really. And no matter what you do, it works. And no one's really thinking too much as like a tribal thing. It's not a conscious thing so much as, you know, is it going over well? I mean, luckily with our band, we always had a good audience, so that always helped.
Another question there?
Can you tell us about the Silver River?
Oh, my book?
Yeah.
My book, The Silver River, well, it's three parts in the book. One is the Midnight Oil story, or part of the Midnight Oil story. And the other bit's about childhood, growing up on the North Shore. And then the third bit's more about Ireland and my adoption story. So there's sort of three parts of the book, really. I didn't want to write a book that was rock hagiography or anything like that. I wanted it to be more this sort of more river meandering, which is what I'm like when I talk, you know. So it's I really love writing. It took me about 12 years to write, on and off, and it was a great experience to do. I really love doing it. I'd love to do another book. I don't know what the hell I'd write about that. What's that? Oh, the Silver River. That's the place where my Irish family were from in Ireland. It's in County Offaly. They grew up by the banks of that river, and I get a lot of my Irishness from that. I think I'll just do a quick thing. When I was about 10, I wrote this little thing. I don't know whether Kim will remember it, but and I wrote that. I was like, what? And I remembered it, and it's an Irish jig. And I kind of go, well, there must be some Irish thing running through somewhere. Some blarney that's running that in my life about something, the flow, or being in the flow of something, so that you can write. I think if anyone gets anything out of the talk, it's about if you've got to be in some sort of flow to write a song of any kind, or some sort of, whether it's a thought or a musical pattern, or it's something that comes over you, like you completely engulfed by it, or you just covered in it, and you have to kind of get your way out of it. It's that feeling of a question that needs an answer, really. It's what writing a song's all about, I think.
Do we have another question? I think down
we got time.
front here.
I've got to run off in a minute.
We've got a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
You can leave, Jim.
First off, thank you for being so publicly open with your processes. Question: is the world of acoustics somehow part of your creative process more than electrical instruments? Like you've got an acoustic guitar here today, and it's just part of your extension of your body.
It's just an Irish.
In any way feed back to you?
It's an Irish bouzouki, but yeah. I much prefer electromechanical things than electric or electronic. Things like harmoniums are better than, and pianos are better than synthesizers. You know, I've always loved auto harps and things that were more, you know, came from a mechanical strings against wood sort of thing than electronic. Although, you know, I've used it and I know how to use samplers and Pro Tools and all that sort of crap, but it's more, the acoustic world is much more interesting world for me than the electronic world. I think there's more, that we can relate to, earth kind of sound in it.
We've got one last question now.
Thank you. Jim, loved the book, The Silver River. It tied it all together. My question is around creativity, which you started with. And so we were with the poet David White in Ireland earlier this year, and he talked about the importance of balancing creativity with the practical world and making sure that there was always time for creativity. And I'm a creative, and I really struggle with that because it's not a career, but it's something that's really important. And I'm wondering about your process, how you prioritise creativity in your life. Is it a discipline while also attending to the practical things?
Well, yeah, I know it's hard when you have kids as well. It's just very tricky balancing it all. I think it's these days I just tend to do any. This sounds very boring, but anything administrative work on a Monday. Then I've got the rest of the week off to be creative. That's how I try and do it. I'm in a very privileged position to say that. Most people don't have that luxury, but I think even if it's an hour or two, so you just feel like you're doing it, and you're not neglecting it. You're not sort of letting it like a garden. You're not letting it get overgrown. You're kind of tending to it. And whatever time you have to do that, that's enough usually for anyone. It's definitely a thing that you have to nurture, and it's very easily broken. You have to sort of tend to it. You can't just think it's going to be there all the time. In fact, it won't be there all the time. You can't will it. It's almost like something you have to circle around for it to happen. It's like trying to trap a wild animal writing a song, really. It's more about that than it's about getting on the charts. I think it's more of a, it's just a way of being. It's a way of, like a child playing the piano, just lost. That's what you want to always get to that feeling in your week somewhere. You can get to that, and then if you're in touch with that, then you'll be okay.
I think that's a beautiful sentiment to wrap up the chat today,
Thanks,
Jim.
Sean.
Thanks so much for your time. Jim and Jean.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you, Jim.
A big, big thank you to Jim Medini and Sean Sennett. Thank you so much for that beautiful trip down memory lane. I was revisiting being a 20-year-old again and thinking about those songs. And who's going to go off with the brainworm do 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 to fight with all the other brainworms around the festival? So yeah, that was so beautiful. And to let you know that was live streamed on Woodford's YouTube channel. I forgot to say that earlier. And you'll be able to look at the recording if you want to watch it again, or you go someone, I missed that. How do I get to see it? Well, they can go to the Woodford YouTube channel and they can find it, along with many other talks here. Not all of the talks, but some selected talks, a couple a day at least. So well done. Jim, when you said you have to be somewhere, are you performing again or? Oh, so if you want to catch Jim again, he's about to be at Bob's Bar with the ABC. Yeah, cool. All right, however, next up here at the Arbor stage, we have innovation and inclusion of people with disabilities in the creative industry, so I'll tell you more about that later. But in the meantime, can we give a big, big thank you, in whatever way you like to express your appreciation, for the 3,000 volunteers who helped run Woodford Folk Festival. So let's big thank you to the backstage crew here and everywhere, the sound people, the stage managers, so many people, the Auslan interpreters, the people who are the S-Band warriors. There's just so many different jobs, and then the people who manage the people who do those jobs. It's a huge logistical operation. So I'm glad we remembered. I finally remembered to thank the volunteers. But in other exciting news, of course, you might have heard of the Forest of Goodwill. But did you hear the latest exciting news? Very recent.